everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Decision Hour. I'm Adam, and with me, as always, my partner in crime, Patty.
Adam, how's it going?
It's going. How are you doing?
How you doing?
How you doing, How you doing?
Doing good. I don't know what accent that was.
I have no idea. No clue whatsoever. Definitely was not a Midwest accent. So, well, listen, I'm excited. We got a great show lined up for them today.
Yeah, I am excited too. I think it's going to be really exciting.
Everybody, we are super excited about our guest that we have today. He is a United States Air Force veteran, and he is the CEO of Rollors. You check him out, rollors.com, Mr. Matt Butler. Matt, how you doing?
Doing great. I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Matt, I got to give a kind of a little backstory here, just a little bit. Those that have listened to the show for a long time know that I was a University of Phoenix alum and whatnot. And I first heard about you years ago, probably back in like 2009, 2010, somewhere in that time frame there. And I've been a big fan of yours. I've been following your company since then and absolutely love what you're doing. So let's break down right into it. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and what you're doing today?
Sure. Yeah, appreciate it. So I recently retired from the Air Force. I was in for a little over 20 years, lived in 10 different locations, 10 different deployments. My career field, my Air Force specialty code was called Air Battle Management. I flew the majority of my time in the Air Force on a reconnaissance aircraft called Joint Stars, which was based in Georgia. But with that being said, I did a bunch of other jobs. I was in a test and evaluation squadron. I was on staff. I was up at the Pentagon. So a bunch of different things like that. Probably about 9 years ago, I was conceptualizing just outdoor games in general, and just knowing that there wasn't a lot of new products on the market. And I started to kind of cross and fuse other games that I enjoyed, like bocce ball and horseshoes, which started my thought on creating a game, which is now today Rollors. I created a prototype in my garage and showed it around to some friends, and I brought it to a church craft fair of a church that I went to. The funny thing is, as you can imagine, I go into the show and there's a lot of people in there that have candles and home crafted goods, and then you've got me, and I'm coming in there with this outdoor game, and people are going, "Well, this is kind of interesting. Who's this character selling this outdoor game?" But I wanted to get feedback on the market on if this was, a good product or not. And I can go on more about that if you wanted me to.
Yeah, absolutely. Because and first off, those of you that are listening to the show right now means you're already online. Open up another browser. Go to rollors.com. That's ROLLORS.com. And you got to check this game out. It's awesome. But Matt, please continue.
Yeah. Okay. And you could just imagine, it's really my first show I've ever done, trade show. I mean, very, very, insignificant amount of money. I paid, $100 for a table, and I didn't really have any branding at the time. My box that I had was a cardboard box with a sticker that I had created that was just red, white, and blue, because I wanted to save some money on the sticker. So you can imagine it probably looked like something from the 1950s. And so when people looked at it, they're like, "Well, what is this thing?" So somebody said, "I love outdoor games. Can I take it and play it outside, basically demo it before I buy it to see if I want to buy it?" So I said, sure. I had about 30 sets maybe made, maybe 35. And what was interesting is somebody started playing with their family in front of the church before people even walked in, and they were doing free advertising for me. So everybody that walked in the show said, "Where's that outdoor game that people are playing? I just played it." And I sold out on the show that first day, which was really great. So I got really good feedback on that. And so what I did is I just doubled down and purchased more inventory and made more. To fast forward today, we sell in a lot of sporting goods stores like Dick's Sporting Goods, Shields, with some REI, Camping World, Gander Outdoors. And so we're in about 500 different retailers. And I've just, since I retired from the Air Force, I've been doing a lot of trade shows. And as you know, I just pulled over to the side of the road to make sure I've got a good cell phone signal. I'm on the road down to Tampa to do another trade show that's for schools. It's for physical education. So now I'm on this trade show circuit going around. I just got back from Atlantic City. I was up there for a camping show, and then I was in Nashville for another show. But it's been a lot of fun connecting with customers and retailers and people about the game. And it's just it's taken off, which it's really fun to see that the game has done so well since I retired. And so it was I should say seamless transition from retirement. I mean, there's a lot that goes through, which is probably a whole nother conversation we could have about military transition
right.
out of, into something new. And, but it was made the transition a little bit easier in that regard, because I had something that I was doing that was doing very well, and I still enjoy doing it. So,
I got to ask, Matt, how long did it take? How many demo tries of like making this? I mean, you came up with the idea. Was this something that you just sketched out on a piece of paper and said, "Hey, I want to take this. This is what it's going to look like," and then what kind of walk us through what that process was when you, from like the inception side of it, like, oh, I just drew this out, this seemed like a cool idea, and this is what I ran with? Or did you have, a couple of different tries at it before you kind of got to the finished product, what you have now?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I'm glad you asked that. So growing up in the Midwest, I grew up in Minnesota, and you would get cabin fever right about now. If you're in Minnesota, you're going, please do not snow again. Yeah, and right. I am sick of being stuck inside. And all I want to do is get outside and, go running and just be outdoors and go to your cabin or fishing or whatever it is. So I grew up playing bocce ball and horseshoes, pretty common, popular outdoor games, been around for, centuries. I took that problem solution you always hear about when people create a business. And the problem I saw was a lack of new outdoor games, a lack of quality outdoor games. And then I tried to take things from other outdoor games that I didn't like. And so, for example, bocce ball sets I felt were very heavy. And if you're a kid, and it's just a lot to lug around. So I wanted to go with something lighter. Horseshoes, you have to take a stake and pound it into the ground to throw the horseshoe at. And I thought, that doesn't seem very mobile. You have to bring a big sledgehammer with and pound a stake into the ground and then try and pull the stake up after you're done. And I mean, you have horseshoe pits around, but those aren't really mobile. And so I was taking those, and that's how I created Rollors. Is you've got 2 goals and you've got 6 discs. 3 per team, and we've got a bunch of other colors out there. The goals are very mobile, and there's no assembly required. And so, again, I was just taking problems and fusing all of those things together to solutions, and that's how I kind of came up with it. And to answer your question, I probably went through about half a dozen different designs. I thought, how big does the disc have to be? How wide does it have to be? What should the goal really look like? And I kind of imagined like a cone, like you're in gym class and you set up all those cones, and I kind of figured something like that.
Nice.
And here's another thing that attaches to the top of the goal is a measuring device. And so every time you play a yard game, and it has to do with how close you are to a goal, you're trying to figure out who's closest, and people are trying to measure. They're pulling out a dollar bill, they're pulling out a string. And so I thought, okay, let's just put a measuring device in it and attach it to the top of the goal that goes out to a 5-foot radius. So they sound like common sense items, but what's funny is none of those have been put together for years. And so I just added that to it, and I get so much feedback from that. They thought, you know how many times we get into arguments about bocce ball, about which ball is closest to the Polino. So again, it's just problem solution,
right?
And that's what, and they're very common. common problems, and you're just coming up with something to figure out what's a better idea. And I think that's all we do, because my outdoor game is nothing phenomenal that is like, completely new. It's really a fusion and a combination of other existing products out there. It's just a new perspective on how to do something.
Yeah,
So,
well, I will stop you there and respectfully disagree with you on the point that it's something phenomenal, because it is phenomenal, and the fact that you've combined the love of past games growing up, and created your own is really quite amazing. And looking at the game, going to the website, when you look at the game, and it's all wood. Everything's made from wood. Is that correct?
Yeah, everything's wood, and it's got 3 layers of lacquer on there, so you can leave the games outside. And there's a lot of plastic items out there,
yeah,
and I've explored that, but I just think there's something unique about wood. It's just all the grains and every item is completely different. So that's why I wanted to go with that. I think it gives a classic element. I just don't believe there's a lot of wood items out there.
That's one of the things that attracted me to the game, was the fact that it's made of wood, and it has that classy look to it. I like the fact that it's very mobile, very lightweight, easy to move around. And you made a lot of great points, like, playing horseshoes and stuff. I grew up in Wisconsin, so it's like bocce ball and, horseshoes. I mean, if, weekend things, weekend trips to the lake or the cabin or whatnot, you're doing one of those things. I wish this would have been there. I mean, you and I are pretty close to the same age. This would have been great, when we were kids.
Yep.
So.
And there's so many games out there, and I love all games. I mean, I've got a storage unit that I partially have rollers in. I've got a couple warehouses, and it's filled with all sorts of outdoor games. I've got iterations of cornhole and bago and bag toss and large beer toss. So there's one called bear pong, which is these huge oversized buckets that's almost like beer pong, except they're massive. They're almost like garbage cans. I mean, I've got them all, and I love just outdoor games, and especially in today is just, one, getting people outside, and 2, just getting people to socialize just be with each other. I mean, I feel like we are staring at our computer so much, and I am 100% guilty of it. I mean, that's how I run the business, from my computer and my iPhone and social media. But there is a time that you need to disconnect and actually talk to people, and and just hang out. And then, and what more than an outdoor game that just brings a little bit of competition, leisure, outdoor fun. And so that's really what it's about, is just getting people together.
And I love that. And I'm guilty of that as well. And I can't wait to get my hands on this. I'm actually I'm heading back to Wisconsin here at the first part of June. And I was telling my family up there, I was like, hey, I'm actually going to be interviewing Matt. This is a game we're going to be picking up, and we're going to take it up to the cabin this summer. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'll make sure I send pictures and whatnot. Matt,
I love it. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. So what's next for you? You said you're on the road. You're doing a lot of events now that you're retired. I mean, and you were right. The transition side of things is a whole nother topic itself. But the fact that you had this going for several years, and now you love what you're doing. What's next? Are you going to continue to do shows? I'm assuming this is already a worldwide product that's being shipped worldwide. And tell us a little bit about that and what's next for you.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've learned over time, and hopefully this is a good tip for anyone else that owns a business or thinking about owning a business, is everything in my business I've done on my own, so I have a full understanding of what it's about. Because if I decide I don't like to do that portion of the business and I outsource it, I know exactly what goes into it. And so, for example, marketing, I outsourced to a veteran-owned PR company because I did it on my own and I learned from it, but I just don't have the time for it. Another example is the finances, which is obviously very key to any type of business, because that's what keeps you going, and knowing how much money you have and what your operating costs are, and are you spending too much or too little. I outsource that, and I go to a CPA every month, and we talk about where are we from a financial perspective and talk about strategy and growth. And so social media is another item. I just started outsourcing that. And so those are items that as I'm growing, I'm trying to put myself in more of a strategic position of how do I want to place the company. And so some items I'm looking at, if you were to look on Amazon, I actually started doing a little bit of licensing. So sports teams, collegiate sports teams are now on Rollers. So you have the ability. So your favorite Wisconsin teams, if you want Badgers, you can put that on there. I'm also looking at, I did a licensing agreement with a company in Sweden for international. So there's actually Rollers that's being distributed in Europe, which is kind of fun because I just saw a YouTube video of somebody speaking, I think it's Czech or Hungarian. I wasn't really sure, but was seeing it, and they're explaining the game of Rollers in that language. So I thought that was really neat. And so I'm looking to see how I can expand. I'm also talking to a company about a plastic version of Rollers, which I'm really debating about. I'd love to get feedback from anyone on that. It's just something that I'm thinking about. Walmart had interest in Rollers, but our price point for Rollers for the wood game is at $50, and they just don't think that price point is a little high for their retailer. But it does very well in other sporting goods stores like Gander Outdoors and Dick's Sporting Goods. So those are just items that I'm looking at. Somebody had told me, I've got a couple really wonderful mentors that have been in this line of business for a while that have told me about the market. And they said, Matt, once you get involved into one business, you will see other opportunities come up and that will come to you. People will bring you opportunities, potential ones. And I did a joint partnership with another company on another line of products. And I've had a couple other that I'm evaluating of either buying their product and their inventory and somebody else buying equity into their company. So there's kind of a lot of different things that I'm looking at. I enjoy the space of outdoor games and just outdoors in general and sporting goods. And I'm enjoying being mobile and being able to run the show on my own. And the military has really brought a lot of that to me, from the fact that I'm able to plan things out. I'm risk adverse when it comes to things. I'm able to get into the details. There's a lot of characteristics that the military trains us to be, and you just take those characteristics and you transition them into a business world. And I think that veterans are very set up and prone to be able to run their own business. And as long as they understand those traits that they have learned and apply them to business, they'll do phenomenal.
I totally agree. 100%. 100%. Matt, we're coming up on time, and I got one very important question for you. One more very important question for you. You're on the show called The Decision Hour. And one of the questions that we ask everybody is, name a time in your life where your feet were on the line and you had to make that decision. And that could be anything: joining the military, getting out of the military, getting married, starting a business, what have you. What was that decision for you? And explain to the listeners what the atmosphere was like for you at that time.
So there are so many things that pop into my head from a military perspective of different scenarios that I've been in after all the deployments. And I'm going to select something that has to do with rollers besides that. And each one of these could be their own podcast. But to continue the conversation about rollers. So I patented rollers. I've got several patents, registered trademarks in Canada, in the US, and Europe. I put a lot of money up front after I thought I did my due diligence that this was a good product to move forward with. And I spent tens of thousands of dollars. And, I was in debt. And when you start a company, a lot of times you're in debt. And I remember my mom even coming to me and saying, you know what, you're putting so much money into this. Are you sure this is the right thing? Maybe you shouldn't do this. And so I'm like, I've got my family members that are telling me, are questioning, if I should be doing this. And that was really tough, not really having that support, especially from, your mom. And then my wife is like, I'll support what you're doing, but are you really doing the right thing? And so I had to push myself through that, which was tough, psychologically, like, am I doing the right thing? Because it made me question everything. But then when you look at the numbers and you look at the sales and you look at the trajectory and the sales growth of everything like that, you just say, you try to rationalize. And that was a really tough time. That was a tough decision for me to power through the negativity from family, even some friends. And then, once you got through that, and now people are like, hey, nice job, you did really good. And it's, looking back, that was a tough decision for me, but it was the right decision.
Clearly, and I can thank you. Let me say thank you for making that decision and power through, because you brought a great product to the world. So thank you, Matt. I appreciate you taking time and actually pulling over to the side of the road to do this interview with us today as you're heading down to your next show there. Folks, again, check out his website, ROLLORS.com. And so you mentioned where people can buy the game. Can they order it online as well?
Yes, yeah. Our website, rollors.com, like you said, Amazon's very popular for us, Wayfair, Walmart. You'll see a lot of specialty other games that are in Kaplan, Flag House. These are like physical education catalogs and things out there. There's a bunch. If you type in Rollors, it'll pop up. Just remember there's an ORS at the end, and you'll see a lot of options. If you want to get a collegiate sports team on there, take a look on Amazon, and you'll see some different teams that are on there, or just shoot me an email through rollors.com. I'll get the email, and I can point you in the right direction.
We appreciate it, Matt. Thanks for taking time to speaking with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Great conversation.
That's all the time we have today, folks. Make sure you go check out rollors.com, ROLLORS.com. And before we let you go, got to give a shout out to our parent network, heroesmediagroup.com. Go check out all the great articles and all the great shows over there by simply going to www.heroesmediagroup.com. Until next time, for Patty, I'm Adam. You've been listening to The Decision Hour.